Welcome to Don't Whistle at Night podcast, where Navajo legends echo in the shadows. Darren and Dawn will guide you through the sacred fire of native storytelling, where the old stories breathe, the unknown walks among us, and voices, long hidden, rise to be heard. And remember, don't whistle at night.
Hello, everyone. Hello, welcome to Don't Whistle at Night. We are broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network. I'm your host, Don Yazzie.
Co-host Darren Yazzie.
Yep, and welcome to episode number 60. Is that correct? 60? 60 already. Yep, how's everyone doing? Sorry to everyone. We didn't get to make it in time to the concert in Gallup. My apologies, our apologies. Kind of took us a while to get all our chicks in the chicken coop before we come down from the mesa, but it's pretty beautiful out here. You know, time flies. We may have got abducted, time flew just like that, but we are okay. Darren and I, we have our little crew here, and we're going to be wandering around Gallup, New Mexico. So if you see someone driving around, you hear someone whistling, don't shoot. Don't shoot at us again, because last time you guys missed us. No, I was just kidding. All right. But anyways, but we're going to be around Gallup area. So if you want to say what's up, you're more than welcome to. We have TikTok. We have Facebook if you want to say what's up, and we can coordinate. We do need some live bait. We're going to go we're going to be looking into some scary areas. So is there any announcements you want to make before we introduce our guest?
Oh yes, you'll find us on Albuquerque Magazine. We did a photo shoot and an interview today, so that's something to look forward to. For us, it's a giant leap. I never thought I would be on a magazine. Hey, here we are now. So keep a lookout. Next we
did a photo shoot with Albuquerque, the magazine. It'll be coming out on July 1st, the issue. So if you're in the Albuquerque area, keep a lookout for Darren and I. We try not to break the photo lens on the photographer's camera. It was really expensive, so I try not to smile. The camera would have cracked if I did. No, I was just kidding. But yeah, we got that coming out, and that's all for the podcast and the community. So we're gonna uplift everyone's voice along with ours, and what you guys hear, we're gonna tell everyone what we hear and what we see. And we have tonight we have a very special guest. His name's Mahokye from the Cheyenne Nation, out of the state of Oklahoma. Out of state of Oklahoma. So welcome, please, Mahokye, everyone. Cheyenne brother.
Oh, hey. How you doing?
Yeah, yes.
Yep, not bad, man. Could you introduce yourself in your language, please?
Yeah. So my name is Mahokye. When people normally ask me my name, that's what I give, because that's what I was given at birth. And later on, I finally understood what it meant, and it meant red feather. Name's Drone Koshway, but that's what I always say is the white man's name. And I always what I always say is I'm Cheyenne first. And at the end of the day, when I tell my kids, because they're enrolled into another tribe, and it's kind of sad because I allowed them to be a part of this tribe, and they kind of do more for the kids and able to have more of an opportunity in life. Right now, the Cheyenne Rappos, don't do too much, whether they like it or not. And I'd rather have my kids have more of an opportunity than not being able to have an opportunity.
Oh yeah. Yep. We gotta uplift the kids, right? Everything for the kids. We gotta have that arms and legs out for them to climb when there's no ladder. To put our arms out. Yeah, appreciate that, man. Thank you for being there for your kids and being there as a good example, because we don't have many people like that, on our reservations. Not dogging on the native nations, but there's a lot of us that aren't as lucky to experience that, just a father figure. Like, I'm speaking for myself, but I'd like to say thank you again for all that. And Darren, you have any questions for Mahoki?
Oh no, oh not really. The question will come up right now. Thank you for jumping on and being with us.
Yes, sir.
No, this is our podcast, but it's your episode, so the mic's all yours, and whatever you want to talk about it's all you.
Well, forgive me for leaning to the side when I do. I'm smoking cigarette, and normally when I have long conversations, that with natives, that comes along with it. So I'll be scooting to the side every now and then. So I'm not disrespecting the podcast or the show or anything like that. So, that, and, like you said, about having role models and everything like that. That's the hard truth. That truly is the hard truth, because whether we like it or not, you would say, I don't want to be rude and I don't want to be mean. But ask yourself honestly, we were built on truth. We were built on honesty. If we was there 1,200 years ago, would we be rude? No, we would be speaking the truth. If you was living a good life, we'd be praising you. If you was living a bad life, what's going to happen? You're going to get teased. You're going to get joked. There's going to be something there that tells you need to change your ways. But back then, the people helped each other. I mean, we was always there for each other. If a hunter went out and hunted first before the group did, a lot of the times their horses were shot, their bows were broken, their teepees were cut. And when they had to come to the realization that they made a mistake. If they didn't, they would have nothing, because that's what it costs to making harsh mistakes that kind of evolve around the community or a large group of people that are all contributing of that hunt. When they realized it and they came back and they apologized and they seek forgiveness and they truly understood what they were asking for, what happens? Well, the tribe would come back together. They would get their bows back. They would get arrows from someone else. They would get a teepee from someone else that had extra. They would be getting horses back from the chiefs that had more. When they realized what their mistake was, and that's what's hard today is, I got brothers and sisters and everybody else that when I go around the ceremonies, it's kind of known as I'm mean or I'm strict or I'm disciplined or Jerome's too honest. And I said, no, we're built on honesty. We're built on truth, and that's the heart of it nowadays, is that we got so much babied, because there's a lot of us that are assimilated. There's a lot of us that are living it by choice and living it because we have to. We got no other choice. They would say, well, go hunt, go hunt, go fishing all day like you want, like you was in Oak. Well, we can't. There's so many laws that keeps us from doing anything that we would naturally do. I mean, there are so many things that kind of prevents that from us being able to be who we are. And whether anybody likes it or not, it was designed that we depend on them. It is designed that way. Why else? Over generations and over time, what happens? I heard this expression where a mother wolf gets caught. She gets put in a cage. That entire life of that wolf, she wants to be free, because she's grown. She's out in the wild. She knows what it's like. Once she has babies and they start getting 3 square meals a day by their feeder, when they put those wolves back out in the wild, they're going to die, because they're so used to those 3 square meals, dependent. Now they have to keep them there until they can transfer that back to them. Those wolves are always going to be kind of, in other words, putting their hand out, asking for this, asking for that, wanting free stuff. And that's hard today, because I do my best with my kids, and I got the greatest compliment of my kids. A lunch lady seen my son and said he was the most well-behaved kid of the entire school. And that meant something because the lunch lady is able to see the kid when he's free at school. That's the only time a kid is free at school, is during lunch and recess. Other than that, they have to be bounded by that chair and that desk and that teacher. And it's a tough thing when you're raising kids. You know, everyone has their own demons or their own harsh times and trauma, whatever it might be. And there's others that have good things, others that have, you know, better things. But the hard thing is knowing. I've always said it's how you discipline your kids when they make that mistake. Because you got to understand is that these kids are growing and learning. They don't know what we know today. We lived probably 20 years doing the same things in our homes, but our kids are just now coming along. They don't know not to touch this or touch that or ask this or ask that when we're talking. That has to be taught. And unless we speak to them and explain to them why they got in trouble, what happened when you do this? Hey, son, don't touch the stove. It's on. It's going to burn yourself. Well, he goes and touch it. You're going to have to talk to him instead of spanking him or smacking him, because a lot of the times we almost react. We react at that moment in time, and they don't know we're upset. They don't know what kind of day we had because they're not, you know, we're not telling them. But a kid all the time will ask you what you're doing or ask you for the time to go spend with them. And it's a tough thing when you're not taught that. You know, they'll say, well, I was brought up this way. I grew up this way. Well, you know not to touch a fire. You know that's bad. You know, going out and causing chaos at your age, whatever it's 20, 30, 40, to not go out and do that. You know to stay home. You know what right and wrong is. And then when you're growing up, you know exactly what good is. Your heart tells you. It tells you the right from wrong. But it's our mind. It's our mind that tells us what if, what might, what could be. Our heart already knows. Don't do it. Don't do it. Well, what if I get away with it? Well, why is that? You know, why is that? And we have a hard thing learning. And having role models and having good teachings and having all this stuff. It's not there today because our ways are stricter. Our ways are harder. To live whatever way, whatever tribe you might be, is hard. Anything you learn new is going to be hard. But you have to want it. By the time it becomes something that needs to be done, it's too late. Well, I need to go to the doctor now. I'm my stomach's all crapped up and I've been like this for a month. Well, that's probably too late. Well, it's the same thing, the same concept. And a lot of this comes from when I grew up, I was raised within a family that my last name wasn't a part of the last names that was there. And I was kind of outcast within my own family. My uncle Edward raised me this way. I used to go sit with him all the time. He would be around those old men. My grandpa Ed raised him, who was one of the last old ones of that time. And to be raised strict and to be taught to that way is something that a kid is not used to. They don't understand it. They don't know it. And one thing he taught me that I always contribute to the things that I do was all of his teachings, all of his talkings, because he didn't ever, go off the wall on me. He always made sure to sit down and talk to me, whether it was for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And when you're a kid sitting there listening to someone talk, that is worse than a whooping. My kids don't like to sit with me for an hour because, Dad, you talk too much. Dad, you're paranoid. Dad, you're this, you're that. Are you going to talk forever? Can I ask, my son will ask me, why do you explain four answers to me, Dad, when I ask you one question? Well, I don't know if you know this one. I don't know if you're going to listen to me on this one. I don't know if you understand it. And by the time I see your head shake, by the time I see you smile and I see the reaction in your face, I know you understand. And then I stop. I said, that's the way I was raised. I said, I was raised to understand creation, to learn creation. And that's hard today, to go and sit out in the middle of nowheres and just listen to the grass and listen to the trees blow and watch the sun come up. And people think that's boring today. But that's what teaches you who we are as Native Americans, as American Indians, as whatever tribe your name is. And you know, it's never been easy for me growing up. My mother, when I turned 13, asked me what I wanted to be. And I said, Mama, I'm Tsististas. I want to climb that ladder. I don't want to be a professional doctor, a professional welder, I'm Tsististas, right? She said, yes. I said, okay, that's the ladder I want to climb. When I was 13, she said, go outside and you tell Mahit Mazit what you want. You tell the creator what you want. And after that, it's locked in. So I go outside and I do what I was taught to do, how to pray, how to brush myself off, how to speak to the creator. I come back in and my mom's crying. She's sitting at the beating table. And I said, Mom, what you crying for? She said, because from this point on, you're going to have a hard life, but you're always going to have everything that you need, never nothing that you want. And that is true to this day. She would say it's hard being Cheyenne, but it's harder living Cheyenne. Because there's so many rules that we have. There's so many restrictions that we have. You can't go out and play in the middle of the night. You can't go out and have fun and play with balls in the house or play with water on certain days, or when storm comes to sit down and behave and pray and listen. Those teachings are gone because our elders could not leave their teachings to someone who would disrespect it, not take care of it. It's no different than a car. You're not going to give a car to somebody that you think is wild or ornery. You want to give it to someone that's going to take care of that car, make sure it's taken care of, make sure it's clean, that's drivable. That's who they're going to leave that car to. But today, well, you can have it. Back then, it was strict because it had to be. That's the way it was, and that's the way it's always going to be. If you want to keep your ways, if you want to keep your teachings, you have to be strict, whether anybody likes it or not. Because at the end of the day, if we lose it and it's gone, people don't know how to get it back. They're not taught on how to get it back. Well, when any man wanted a vision, wanted prayers listened to or heard, they went out and prayed. They went out, sometimes they'd be out there for a week. Some people would never get it. Is it because they're not praying right? Is it because they're not speaking the words right? Well, it all comes down to belief. Belief, faith. I guess the other word would be faith, but it's belief. And they, I think, interpret it, and they were trying to rush it. They wanted it. They wanted it right then sometimes. And when you take your time, just like anything else, you lose something in your home, you're rushing around, you're trying to find it. You can't find it because you're rushing, you're not thinking. Once you sit down, you're there for 30 minutes to an hour, you're like, you know what? I know where it's at. And you get that smile on your face and you go find it. Well, it's the same thing with prayers and visions and trying to find our ways back. Is our kids need to be taught and structured in a way that helps them to see this. You know, it doesn't take, it's not hard. It's want to do it. It's want to do it. That's what it comes down to, is wanting it. If you don't want it at all, or in any percentage that is, there's a doubt, it's not going to happen. It's hard to grasp, and it's hard to really understand on how someone wants something. But when I grew up on, like I said, on this property, and I was, becoming bowstring, and I was learning these ways. Well, we was going to my first meeting, and my uncle said, he goes, "Why do you always carry that sheet with you?" And I said, "Well, this is what we're supposed to have. This is what we do. This is how we're supposed." Nope. This is what it is. This is what we have. This is what needs to be done. I said, "Let me out of the car." When we got halfway to the back there to the house to go have this meeting, I said, "Let me out of the car. Let me out of the car." He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm gonna go and get the stuff I need. By the time you're done with that meeting, I'll have all my stuff. When I get back to the house, I'll make it." So he goes and has that meeting, and I found a machete, I went out looking for the trees that he told me. I went out looking out for the stuff that I was needed. I went out and got the things, and by the time he came back, I was waiting at the end of the road for him. Got home, and I made my own bandolier out of wood, taking the time to slowly get it cut, trying to figure out how to drill a hole through this stick without asking him questions too much or trying to use a drill. It's tough. You have to really use your brain to think of what will work. And lighting an iron, lighting what do they call them? Hangers. Those wire hangers, sharpening it and putting it through that stick was what came to my mind when I was thinking about it. So over that time, I was having to stop, think, pray, ask, what do I need to do? How do I need to do this? So it's those things that want it, and it's today the world is tough. It's not easy. There's a lot of things we don't have. There's a lot of things that are missing, and one of the biggest thing was learning creation. Learning creation is the biggest thing that I can teach anybody. Is watch the elements, watch the trees, watch the ant come in and out of that hole, watch how the grass flickers in the wind, listening to the birds, listening to the wind blow. You're going to hear things, you're going to see things. If you're sitting there and you're praying and you're wanting it, you're going to hear things that you didn't think before. You're going to see things happen in front of you, and you can shake your head because it looks unreal. It almost looks like if a hand if it shimmered, that's how you're going to see that other world. That's what it's going to look like when you see it. But I mean, it's different for everybody, and it comes in many ways. So I do appreciate being able to come on the show and speak and have an opportunity, because I've always wanted to be able to help the young kids in any manner, in any aspect. Because at the time when I was growing up, a lot of these men wouldn't listen. All of these boys, even my Uncle Edward, would get on to them and tell them and try to talk to them, try to explain stuff to them. It was like they didn't care. My uncle was a very, very strict man. He was probably about 5'6", maybe 5'5", 120, 130, 40 pounds. But when that man walked and you seen him coming, you seen that 7 to 8 foot shadow coming behind him because of what the knowledge he had and how he walked. And people knew that they messed up. Something happened. What did we do wrong? You'd see people scrambling around. And my uncle was a little man. And I seen people trembling around him out there. People didn't come question anything. People didn't, he knew the things, but he wasn't out there to be mean, hateful to anybody. We had every right to switch to people that were messing up, but he would go and talk to them. And I would follow him, and he would say, Jay, you can stay. And I said, no, I'm going to go learn. No, I want to go learn. So I'd follow him everywhere. And when we would go on these to get the arbor poles and do different things to help people out, they would give us gifts. They would give us water. They would give us blankets, food, whatever it might be that they were able to give. I would get all of it, and I would take it back to him, and I'd go put it down in front of him. And he would brush it off. And after about damn near 15 times, Jay, why are you bringing me this stuff? And I said, well, all of the stuff that I gave you is for the questions I don't have right now. When I ask you, all this is payment. I don't want to have to give you nothing later. I said, I'm giving you everything in advance. I said, because right now, Uncle, I don't have questions. I said, but when I do have questions, I want them to be answered. He just sat back and smiled and said, ha ho, all right. Threw his hand at me in the ha ho motion, and I said, all righty. So after that point on, man, I started to learn pretty fast and pretty quick about these things, because my uncle was, I believe, 56 when he passed, but he had the knowledge of a 150-year-old old man. There was so much stuff that he taught me that no one knows, that it's hard to give all this knowledge out to one person. Not one person can handle this knowledge. And I'm very thankful that I got 4 boys, because each one of them is getting that 50%, that 25% that they need to have. And I raised them to understand that they're all that they got. our kids, when we have kids, they don't understand aunties and uncles. They don't understand the other families that they're related to. And when your family member passes away, they're not going to come and how do I explain this? Um, when I pass away, there is no obligation of my family to come and help my kids, come and make sure food's on the table, uh, bills are paid, nothing, because I am here. That's their obligation. What I built with them is their obligation. What I brought is everything that they see that they're going to come do this. Now, if I'm a good enough man, maybe they will take care of my family and help my family. But I learned pretty fast that that's the way it is. That's the truth. The obligation when you pass away, to them kids, their other family members don't have that. Some do. There's some out there that still have it, but for the most part, it's not there. So I raised my kids to make sure, like a book. I raised my kids to have each part of this knowledge, and I always tell them. I said, people don't understand how things work. I said, I'm your father. They go, yeah, you're dad. I said, well, I'm this book. I said, show them a book, show them the chapters. I said, if I take this chapter out, what happens? Well, is it a full book? Is it really a book after that? Because, the part's missing. And I said, when you kids all come back together and you're sitting down and you start talking about how dad was, what dad was like, I said, right, without you realizing it, I'm right there in front of you. I said, because every kid is raised differently. Every kid is not raised the same, even though they have the same parents, even though they're loved the same, even though they're taught the same. I speak to all my kids, and when we have team meetings, what I call them, I said, I'll discuss things and I'll go across things and we'll figure out this and that. Ask questions. Even I ask, what can I do to be a better dad? What did I do this month that wasn't good enough? What did I do that upsetted you? This is the time to speak. And I make sure they understand that this is that time they can say what they want. They can say what's on their heart without no repercussions. Nothing that can, because a lot of time kids have fear. I mean, that's where their lying comes from, is fear. Once you start showing them your rage side, and it affects them. So having to be able to talk to kids and help them understand is one of the biggest things I think is out there is talking to them.
Quick question, brother.
Yes, sir.
We have Little Wolf C13 is asking, "What's your name? What does your name mean?" It means red feather, correct? Or
yes,
am I
sir.
wrong?
Yes, yep. Okay. Red feather.
Mahokye. Okay, awesome, man. Yeah, that there's a lot of things I'm listening right now to you, and I'm gonna have to apply and adopt some of that stuff right now because asking the kids, is there anything else I can do better? Instead of me asking, I look at their face, just study them. Like, all right, is there anything else? Like I be asking them what's wrong, and
Yep.
they're kind of like me in a way. They're hard to open up.
Oh yeah. And that's because of that fear. I mean, that's where it comes from, is being able to. My kids, they say, my 13-year-old, he's a boy. He starts to talk back, and I was like, man, why is he talking back? Is it just because he's getting older? It's his testosterone. When they have a secured father in their home, they feel that need that they can talk back because they have a father that isn't being, overly mad, overly aggressive, spanking all the time, hollering all the time, cussing all the time. They have that to be able to open up, because kids now are able to cry. I tell my kids, if you make a mistake, you can cry. I'll cry with you. I said, but if I tell you don't touch that stove, you're gonna burn yourself, and you start crying, I'm gonna tell you, nope, you knew better. I done told you twice. I said, you cannot cry. I said, wipe your tears off. I said, if you want to whimper, you can whimper. I said, but the thing is, kids, I said, son, I said, the world is not going to treat you any better than me. Me and your mother are going to treat you the best in the world. Everything that we do for you is out of love. I said, because a roof over your head, food in your belly, I said, clothes on your back and a pony to get you to A to B. I said, that's all you need to live. To make it to 18, I said, that's all you need. Everything else we do is because we love you. I said, because you got to understand, I said, it's a tough world out there and they're not going to be any kind to you. I said, so when I tell you these things, and my son, you're paranoid, Dad. You talk too much. And I said, listen, I said, I was raised with 10 aunts and uncles. I said, I was raised on this property where all our homes were there. People used to call it a compound. People called it a village. But all our homes were within 100 yards of each other. And I seen how families were raised. I seen when there was 3 kids in a family, 5 kids in a family, 4 kids in a family, boy, girl, 2 boys, 5 boys, 3 girls, 5 boys. I seen how these families evolved throughout the time that I've been out there. I seen how fathers spoke to their kids. I seen how mothers spoke. I don't know why I was blessed seeing all of this and being able to really understand it and grasp it. But I was able to see all of that. So when I tell my kids, I said, no, I tell you this because it can't happen. I said, it can't. It's tough and it's hard. I said, everything that I'm telling you, what makes it so sad, I said, is that I have to wait until you're 18, till you're 30 to really understand what I'm saying. I said, and don't let me pass away by the time you say, you know what, my dad was right. You know what, Dad, I am sorry. I said, because it could be too late. I said, and that hurts you. That will plague you. I said, my dad drank most of my life. At the time he passed away, I was 23. He drank until I was 23. And I said, the last conversation I had with my dad, I said, it wasn't nice. I never liked to talk to him drunk. I always told him, call me sober. I'll talk to you all day. Call me sober, Dad. And the last time he called me, he was telling me I love you. And my dad, prior to that, I've never heard I love you. I've never heard it. It was wild, but it was crazy because, I would see it within other people and other fathers in these different homes. But my dad's trauma, what he grew up with, was different. And I didn't know who my dad was because sometimes overbearing parents can make another parent back off. And they don't realize that. They're wondering why the dad's not speaking to the kids or spanking the kids or doing enough. And it's just vice versa with women. If a dad's being too protective to inserting himself in the mother's discipline or the conversation or whatever it might be, it makes the other parent back off. And by the time they realize it, it's too late. So I seen that within my father, and wasn't until I moved over to where his homeland was that I learned kind of a little bit more about my dad and the trauma he went through. I said, so that can affect someone all their lives. And
yeah,
it's just a thing that you have to learn through. If you learn creation, you'll learn things happen. You'll learn that that's the way it is. It's not that it's making you desensitized. It helps you understand exactly the way life is. And whether we like it or not, on this earth, on this created earth that we live on, everything that we was taught by our grandpas and grandmas is true. And it will always be true until the day this world finally explodes. Until then, no matter how far we go in the future, no matter how many billions of years, our traditional ways with medicine, with visions, with prayer, with talking to animals, with all of these traditional ways that we have, as long as we're taking care of it and we're keeping it and we're making sure that we're keeping the stuff that we need, it will always be here and it will always help you because you was given away first before you learned any of the ways that are today with all the different religions, different ways of life. You were given away. It's like someone coming to you and telling you their dad that you had all your life for over 50, 60 years, that you never had to question him. He always showed you the love, talk to you, communicate to you. They come to you and tell you, hey, that ain't your dad. Your dad's my dad. And how do you think anybody's going to be able to understand that and grasp that? Because I had a Christian friend, and excuse me for talking about this, but anybody that believes, I'm not knocking down in any way. I'm just explaining my experience with the Christian friend that I had for over 8 years, because he would always ask me, "Do you believe? Do you believe?" And I would say, "No." But you're my friend. I say, and you're willing to die for him. You're speaking on his behalf. I have to believe he's real. Well, how come you can't believe, Jay? How come you can't believe? And that's what I explained to him. I said, Greg, one of the biggest things you don't know how to preach to me. I said, you don't know how to bridge the gap. Well, I worked with the Indian guys for 10 years. I said, well, living with us and working with us are two different things. I said, I promise you, it's a complete difference when you're inside the home, listen to how they talk, how they use different words, language, how they act, how they walk, I said, how they approach getting up to how they approach going to sleep. It is completely different. And this is some of how our ways get lost is that we're spiritual people. We are naturally spiritual people within our hearts and minds. And when somebody takes that away, we're going to go and find it somewhere else, no matter how crooked it is, or no matter how good it is, no matter how bad, whatever it might be. You're going to go and find it somewhere else. Like a doctor, hospital shuts down. He doesn't go find work somewhere else because he loves helping people. He's a doctor. Well, that's what they did to us. They took our ways away from us, and we had to go find something. Well, once you grow up in that, it's just like a hospital. Well, if the hospital's not good enough, the doctor's going to rationalize in his mind to help himself stay there at that hospital because he's helping people. Well, if he's not at the top to help truly understand the differences, then it's kind of one of those things where it's a double-edged sword. But Greg, I talked to him. I said, it's like I had a father for 50 years and you had a father. Not once did any of us have to question our fathers. Not once did we ever have to question them. I said, you're coming to tell me that my dad is not my dad, that he's your dad, and I gotta follow your dad now. Well, that's not what I'm saying. I said, well, I understand what you're trying to say. I said, but you got to understand, you don't know how to bridge that gap to help talk to me, help me understand, to help me learn. And he went to college for different things, and we spoke for almost 8-9 years. And he would say, Jerome, I think you're the best communicator that I've ever met in my life. And he would ask me some weird questions that I almost thought he was from a 3-letter group, and because they were questions about overseas and different on how to structure and how to help and how to bridge gaps in a lot of ways. And I'm like, man, that this I don't kind of weird. I said, but so learning these different things is what helped me, and being able. So all these experiences that I'm going to explain and talk about tonight is what helped shape me. Because I've been to the largest cathedral in New York, or I believe it's the largest church. Got to speak to many preachers, pastors, different people around the world, and that come to these churches, and they all came to me. A lot of those men that I went to and talked to, they would say, if I didn't know you was Cheyenne, I would have thought you was Christian. And I said, and that's how you know my way is correct. That's how you know I'm following the right way. And they would kind of look at me like, what? I said, well, I told you our way is based on the truth, based on honesty, based on pureness. I said, walking the right road. I said, I said, before pre-Columbia, I said, because he would tell me, Jay, well, your ways are corrupt now. I said, yeah, you can say that now, but you couldn't say that pre-Columbia. I said, because you got to understand, I said, it was like a utopia back then. I said, and you guys didn't even get the lesson when you came over. I said, and that's the hard thing, is that you didn't see it. Now you see it today. They know that cradle boards are good. They know that all these different things that we did are the best way to raise a kid, or the best way to approach certain things. So it's one of those hard lessons that you have to learn. And I tell my son about how people are in this world. I said, an apple. If you got a rotten apple, I said, you'll always hear this saying, don't put that bad apple with those good apples. They're going to turn them rotten. You will never, ever hear anybody say, grab that good apple and put it with those bad apples and watch it turn them good. And I said, and that's how you know miracles are happening. When you're able to speak to someone and you're able to stop them from going out, maybe from grabbing a beer, maybe an addiction, maybe doing something that that is wrong. That's how you know miracles are happening. It's because of that expression right there. and it's hard for anybody to see past their own box. What I mean by that is, in my home, I got 4 walls, 4 windows. If I never take myself out of that box to look inside the box, I'm always going to do everything that I've been doing. It's kind of like how you would see another relationship and you're like, dang, that woman's being honored to him. I won't ever get talked to that way. I won't ever let her holler at me like that. I'm a man. Well, once you get in that relationship and you love that woman, what's going to happen? You're going to get cussed out. You're going to get hollered at, and you're going to be okay with it. You're in that box now. With cousins and brothers and nieces and nephews, get up, quit laying around. I wouldn't let nobody lay around in my house and sitting there doing this. Get up, get to work. Well, your brother asked to come stay with you. He didn't have a job. Well, what you going to do for the first week, probably month? Allow him to lay there. Allow him to sleep. Now you got someone laying in your home. Well, that's what I mean by take yourself out of the box, is because when you look outside of your box and you look at everybody else, you got all kinds of solutions for everybody else. But you look at your life and you're thinking, why is this going this way? Why is my life this way? And it's like I said before, your heart knows that you're in the wrong. Your heart knows what can change. But it's that what if, what could be, that up here that tells you, well, I'll be all right. Well, when you get experienced in anything, you cut corners. The newbie is always going to want to do things right, do things correct, like your kids. After they brain develops after 7 years old and they start opening their brains and they start asking different questions. They start asking, want to know different answers. Well, when I watched my kids grow up, I was able to understand that their brains developed at certain stages. Things would happen differently. They would ask questions differently. They would approach different things in a different manner than they did before. And if you watch them, you'll understand the stages that it happens in. So you're able to speak to your kid in a way that he's able to be spoken to. You don't go to an old man and start talking to him and hollering at him like he's your son. Get up, go get that water up. No. Hey, sir, how you doing? Nice to meet you. You want a glass of water? You're going to go and go get him water. You don't talk to the kid like he's a grown man. I told you to do this a long time ago. You already know. Well, no, he doesn't. It's his first time seeing it when you told him the first time 20 minutes ago. He doesn't know. And that's why communication is key with kids in their beginning stages, is because they need to understand. They need to see it. They need to hear it. And a lot of times when you're frustrated and you're upset and you're hot-headed, whatever it is at work going on, or whatever it is with your spouse or your family, without us realizing it, we bring it home. We bring it to our kids. And those are the ones that hurt the most. They hurt the most when mother and father's fighting. They hurt the worst when mother and father choose different things. The only way them kids benefit the most is if those parents choose each other for the benefit of the kids. Because when mom and dad's happy, the kids get to go to the zoo, they get to get candy, they get to get pop, they get to enjoy the time they have with you. But when all this stuff is happening, they see the worst of you. And we don't realize that sticks with the kid. When you do that at the stage that their brain is awakening, they remember that. Then when they get older, that's the way it was for them. Just like me. I remember, I'm the baby of 6. I remember getting my hind end busted a lot. Well, when I got older, my brother said, "Buck, you never even got whipped, boy. You never even got." Mama would sit there and she was your mama bear. If we bothered you, she attacked us. If them kids were messing with you, she would go and, or that parent said something to you and you came back crying to her. That was mama bear. You didn't get a whooping. I'm like, man, I thought I did. No, he would say, you sat with us when we got talked to. You sat with us when we got a whooping. And you sat with us when mom said, "Do you understand?" I said, "What?" You go, "Yep, you was mama's baby." So that perception, you have to understand, when you're young, it sticks with you. And we don't understand it because we don't have our old teachings, our old ways, the ways that were given to you, because the kids are going to remember the ways you teach them now. And when you don't have them ways, it's kind of tough to go back to traditional ways when it was never there in the beginning. And a lot of people that are learning traditional ways will split off. And then when they come back 60 years old, 50 years old, they want to be at the top of the food chain and saying, well, I was this when I, nope, you got to go all the way back to the beginning where you started from. Where you left, you have to start there.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we do and everything we have is earned. Everything. Even how people are treated, it's earned. You don't treat nobody with respect or with kindness unless you see something that kind of tells you that that's there. It's tough. And when you see them start talking crazy or acting well, when they come to you, you're gonna say what you want. You're gonna act how you want. And that's what I always tell my kids. When you get older and you got to understand, I said, you got to talk how you talk to people and how you treat people. We'll come back on you. I said, you got to understand. If I go and treat somebody hateful, I can't get mad when the next person comes and decides to cuss me out or smack me or whatever it might be that I did. I got to suck up and think, okay, you know what? Let me see, what did I do wrong and how do I fix it? And it's the same thing I tell my kids with that same thing of crying. I said, what you have to do is stop and think what you did. What did I do? How do I fix it? Because it's the same thing with the team meetings. Okay, well, Dad, you holler too much. Okay, well, why did I holler? Because we didn't listen. Okay, well, how many times did I tell you before I hollered? 4 times. Okay, so am I in the wrong or you're in the wrong? We are. Okay, now that we fixed that, I will calm down my holler. I will do my best to help you understand a little bit better. All right. Yeah. What are you not understanding?
1 second, brother. 1 second, brother. Martin LaForce and JDMO21. This is a little different show tonight. If you guys want to hear some scary stories, you might want to check out the past episodes. Oh yeah.
I will tell a story. I'll tell a story.
Oh yeah. But 1 second. But everyone out there, we're just hearing Mahokia, where he comes from and how he was raised. Someone shooting that way. How he was raised. So just hang on there. So just hang on there. Be respectful, everyone.
Oh yes.
All right. Well, go ahead.
It's the whole thing of listening. This is what we're supposed to do when someone's talking. You sit there and you listen, and information like this. People will use, they'll go back to, this episode and they'll listen and, they'll meditate on the words. They'll think more about the words later and how to be a better, being on this world, this earth, and how to live, together as a family group, and not even as a family, but as a community when it comes down to it. This is the first time I'm meeting Mahoki right here. And, what I was telling him before the podcast, like you're the pretty much the ambassador for your people right now, and I think you're doing it really good. I'll probably go back and listen to this. May not be tomorrow, but when I have kids of my own, I'll sit there and I'll think more about it. And this is a good framework to hold this information, the lifestyle, and it's hard to explain, the native mindset to non-natives, and it's difficult to explain, the culture, and this is a pretty good format, I believe we have right here, not just on the spooky side, but on the traditional life, the life, and this is great. This is really good information for everybody to hear. So thank you. Thank you again. And you can keep going.
Yeah. So I should have explained how I talk. So if there was a question that wanted to hear spooky stories, I didn't mind, telling one. When I speak, I tie it all together. It's a habit that I have when these old men would come out to the property. They would talk with my grandpa. These men all would talk. All old men would talk anywhere from 6 o'clock p.m. all the way till 9 o'clock the next day, just drinking coffee and eating cookies all night, getting sandwiches made to them, bringing it all out there. Our family was very. I come from the arrow keeper family, and our ways, the way we grew up was very strict, and we were always told pick up this, pick. I mean, we picked up trash on the first 10 acres of this property every Sunday because we were told you don't want the white people to see you this way, you don't want them to look at you that way, you don't want them to say nothing. But I mean, we literally they would get all of us, and we would have to go from the back of the last house all the way to the front. And it was probably, I would say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6 acres picking up trash, whatever might have been there. But when I'm speaking, I will speak about almost 3 to 4 different things, and I tie it all together at the end. And I do that because not everyone understands the first time, and it takes 3 or 4 times for someone to finally understand what you're saying. And micro reactions, that's kind of what I would look out for. But because I'm talking to a camera, I'm not able to see everyone's face to know that we can move to the next stage. But I'll tell this experience that I had with Bigfoot. It was an experience that I still keep today. I still have dreams about it. Like, it's weird. Like, I will have dreams of how close he is, messing with my family. Sometimes we talk, sometimes it's scary moments, sometimes he's saving me. I mean, it's been like that since the day that I started experiencing him. Whoops. So about, I would say I think I'm 30, 37. Back when I was probably about 20, 25, 26 in Hammond, Oklahoma. One night we're sitting there, me and my wife. We go outside. It's probably about midnight. Go outside and smoke a cigarette, and we're sitting there, and it's a blood moon, and big old full moon. And there's that Wichita Reserve that was literally a couple miles down the road, at least 10 miles. So it's not a couple, but anyways, we hear this large, big growl, man. It's like, it kind of stopped. You hear that? She goes, yeah. And we heard it again, but it sounded further away. And I was like, man, that's pretty crazy. And that was my first time hearing something like that. And I lived out in the country all my life. Well, I guess once, I'm sorry about that. But when I was 13, I was about 13, many years, couple years in between that until I was 20, 24. But, once I moved to Hammond, I was with my wife, and there's a buffalo ranch right down the road. And there's a lot of ravines, or I call them gullies, about 15 deep, dry rivers, dry banks. I mean, there's nothing in there, just trees. Whenever the rain comes, it knocks all the trees in there, and rushes everything through there. And after we heard it, I got on the ranch, and I used to work with the bison program with the China Rappos, and I started looking for, little things to see if he did walk around out there. Well, I would find big old granite rocks. Big granite rocks in trees. And then I would find river rocks in trees, put into the little crevice of the trees, or the forks of the trees. I would even find branches that hung on trees. And if you walked by and didn't notice it and it fell, it was crazy because it felt like a tripwire. And I would put it back on and sit there for a couple minutes, see if it would fall off in any kind of way, wind blowing, whatever, and it wouldn't fall off. It was like they knew what they were doing. And that's because they are part of the original group that was created from Mars, from this side of the continent, I guess you could say. They were part of the original group that wasn't able to get their purpose given to them by the creator before they left. And that's why they live the way they live. That's why they kind of hide, and every time they see humans, they hide. It's not because they have enough knowledge. They were scared because they're not around humans a lot. It's just like animals. You know, that we all have that animal instincts. We all act like a different animal every now and then. You know, it's one of those things. We naturally have it because we're created on this, you know, we were given to this creation. But so I got a little bit more curious, and pretty soon I got to a point that I was too curious. And my grandma used to tell me, "Don't get too curious. Be careful, Jay. Be careful." And I said, "All right, grandma." And I was young, you know, running around trying to go figure out what was and what wasn't. So uh, we go down the road probably about 2 miles. 2 miles down, there's an old homestead that used to be there. It's all broken down now, but there's still those basements there. And there was a ravine right across the road from it. And me and Lawrence, we get across that fence, and there's this tree that's growing from that ravine. So there's a ravine that goes straight this way. The gully is probably about 15 feet, 16 feet deep. And you can see the big root that grew out, and then the tree kind of came this way. We get over there, and I had a pit named Aquila, and I happened to go on the right side. He's slowly walking to the left. I look down, and there's branches hanging over those roots that are grown out, and you can see something black in it. Pretty soon, we start hearing rocks clack, probably about 200 yards back into the ravine, and you can hear click, 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 click. I mean, it was making a pattern. And I said, "Lawrence, get back over here. Get on this side. Get on this side." He said, "What?" I said, "What if whatever comes out? I don't want to. We can't do nothing by ourselves. And you know, being brave, I'm not worried about how big it is or if it's scary. I'm a warrior. Better to die young than to grow old. You know." And people didn't understand that expression. When you get old and you have to depend on people, it's hard for the elders. I don't think people realize how hard it is for elders that are independent their entire life, and they have to start depending on people that isn't dependable. You know, it's tough. So he comes back around, and whatever it is, you could see it hiding in there. It could have been a baby, a juvenile, whatever it might be. I literally almost threw a Aquila down there just to see what it was. And as soon as I grabbed her collar, I thought, nope, I better not. I better not. So I grabbed her. I said, let's go, Lawrence. So we left. Well, after we got curious about its home, it came out to the house. And one night, me and my wife, we go outside and we're smoking a cigarette, and there's this tree that's 20 feet from us, catty corner. And I don't know what kind of tree it was, but it grew up in sticks. And it would I don't know how to explain it. It looked like a porcupine tied the porcupines tied together. And pretty soon we hear that shake. I mean, it's shaking, and there's no wind blowing. There's no trees. Minigus was on the left side of me, and by the time I got up to look, the door was already open. Come on, and man, I didn't even react. I just grabbed her rear end and I chunked her inside, and I stopped by the door, and she goes, "Get in here, get in here." I said, hold on. I'm trying to look. I'm trying to see. And she's, "Get in here." I said, all right. So I closed that door. And what was that? I said, "I don't know." And it was like nights like that it would happen. Every couple nights, every night, he would come around. And I didn't, we didn't try to think to nothing of it. And we lived out in the country. That's what things happen. But after this, things picked up. So we go pick up Lawrence at Walmart, and we drive the back road home. Well, we get halfway into the back roads, and I tell Minigus, "Man, can you drive? My eyes, I'm getting tired." She said, "Yeah." So she gets in. We're driving home. We get about a mile from the house, and her uncle's at the house, and they're burning a big fire. They're singing their powwow songs. They just put a new derrick whale up right down the road from us. So all that noise was just happening. And pretty soon I just hear, "What the F is that?" I look up, I see legs go across the road. So I look to the tree line. And when we drove past it, I seen its face and its hands. It turned and looked at me like that as it went up the bank. When we passed it, there were some big old bright red orange eyeballs that we passed. And we kind of freaked out. We get to down there and we tell them what's happening. we tell our uncle and them, hey man, we just seen Bigfoot. And they're, already beers in and they're singing, and so they didn't think nothing of it. They kind of pretty soon, I would say not even 5 minutes later, they kind of started loading their stuff up. And I said, "Oh, did you guys hear something?" And they just kind of chuckled and got everything, and they left. And but I think it was that noise with the powwow songs and that big old fire burning what got him curious, got him walking down the road to see, because he was on the side of the road, and I had a lot of evidence of it. My phone that I had, I ended up getting mad and throwing it behind the house, and I never could find it. Never could find it. But it had the SD card of. I went back and I seen its footprints. I measured them. Did a whole documentary like I was some National Geographic guy, and I sent it to all my family and said, "Hey, look what I found." Uh, so it picked up after that, and it got scarier because I could not sleep for a whole month. I mean, I could not get up and go smoke a cigarette. We had a window by the end of our bed and then on the left side of our bed. And there was times I had to use the restroom in the middle of the night and I could not get up. I could because I was so terrified. I said, man, maybe he's at that window. What if he grabs me? And my wife would say, call me names, trying to get me to get up. And I'm like, nope, man, have you seen its face? I said, you would feel the same way. And she said, I did see it. I said, no, you didn't see his eyes. I said, his eyes were big and black. I said, they were cold black. I said, you seen the reflection of his eyes. And so after about that month, I go and speak to my grandma. I ask grandma, this is what happened. This is what's going on. And she, starts speaking to me in Cheyenne and nudged me. And I said, well, what can you tell me about it? And this is what she could tell me in English. She said, be careful what you say to him. Be careful. Don't say, don't say things that's going to offend him. Don't do things that are going to offend him. And she goes, and if you see him, don't you run. She said, you look down to the ground. Whatever you got in your pockets that you're able to give, you give it to him. You tell him you're sorry. She said, and she taught me words in Cheyenne to say to him. She goes, speak to him in your language. He knows your language. He knows who you are. And I said, really? She goes, speak to him in your language. He understands you. And I didn't, pay attention to that part too much. But the other half, she said, I can't tell you. The other half, I don't know how to translate it in English. There's no words for it. So I said, okay. She said, but you be careful. She goes, you don't like what these white people are doing, destroying this world. She said, I promise you. And I said, all right, Grandma. So I go back now that she kind of told me what was going on a little bit. I go back to work. Everything kind of seems normal. Well, I'm driving down the road and there's this tree that was knocked over, pretty good size, probably the size of my head. And I go back down there and it looked like it was deliberately placed in the middle of the road. So as soon as I get to that tree, I'm calling my Auntie Eva because I was going to tell her about it. And pretty soon I look up and you could see this cedar tree at that old homestead, but there was a dark spot in it. It was like he leaned himself into that cedar tree and was trying to hide himself. And then pretty soon I heard this, what sounded like a screech, monkey growl, like a gargle, like a hoop, and like a man. It was all of those in once. And he roar, roar, roar. And I said, Antifa, he's still here. I'm kind of freaking out, like I'm literally shaking. And she said, pray, put tobacco down, pray. So I'm talking. I finished my prayer. I put that tobacco down, and then I hear like a hoot, like a whoop. Wasn't really loud, just like almost like he heard me, like he understood. I guess after that, I told him I was sorry for getting too curious. I told him I was sorry for coming into his home and seeing his, whatever it might be, his kid or whatever it might be. And I explained to him I was curious. I said, I'm sorry. I said, but I don't know what you are. I don't understand it. I said, so I'm not being mean or hateful. I'm not trying to attack you. But if my curiousness gets the best of me, I said, I need to let you know not to harm me, not to bother me like this, the way you're doing. I said, because I wasn't trying to come and be disrespectful, trying to harm you in any kind of way. And I said the words that my grandma said, saying Cheyenne, and after that, it was like the experience got better. It wasn't so much as aggressive as it was before. There's many stories that are in between those. That's just the main part of my experience with Bigfoot. And so we move over here to Red Rock, and we lived out in this trailer that was a little ways, kind of, I guess you would say, the last street on the town. And that thing used to come around there, and I don't know if it followed me or if there was some telepathic thing going around, but it was something, because I asked another elder that was in Hammond what it was, and he used to call them the other tribe. And I said, you know what? I said, I could see that. He goes, look, imagine. He said, bison. They stay around bison a lot. He said, you see these, you found all these footprints out here. I said, yeah. He said, well, he said, if a Bigfoot was to lean down with his hands by hanging on his knees, he said it would look like a bison. How a bison's his head is tipped. He said how it would come down to his arms, where his his elbows would stick out, sitting on his knees. He said it would look like a bison looking at you if you didn't know any better. And I said, yeah, but I mean after a certain point, I stopped getting afraid. I just figured if it was time to boogie, and that was kind of my little experiences with him. There was many nights that I didn't know, or didn't think, I was just curious. And one night I was playing the video game, and I had the window open, and pretty soon I hear. I get up, walk out of the room. I go to my wife, and I tell her, I said, hey, can you go close the window for me real quick? She goes, yeah. Why? I said, act on. I said, just close it for me. I said, I'm really rushing. When someone don't have that fear because they don't know, she just went in there, closed it, covered, locked it up, and closed the curtain, and came on out. And it's closed. So I was like, all right, thank you. Went in there the next day, and she was like, how come you told me to close the window? I said, man, I heard something growling out there. I said, the only thing I could think of was, I'm not bothering you. I'm not harming you. I'm walking out of the room. And that's what I said to it. And Minigus went and closed that window. And that next day she was cracking me up. Why'd you have me do that? And I said, I don't know. I said, I was terrified. I said, I heard it breathing. I said, I just decided to get up and walk out. And I said, it wasn't, just didn't know what to do. And she's, well, don't do that again. And we go to the camps, and I'm getting ready to go in the arbor, and something kept climbing up. Like it sounded like the wind. It would climb up the shade. And have you ever heard dry willow branches or dry willow trees? It has a real rustle to it, because when it gets real dry, it's just flaky. Well, you would hear this little man climb up the shade, and it would jump and hit the tent and slide down. And it must have been playing, because it would climb up, and you would hear it hit this tent and slide down. And she goes, what is that? I said, it's the wind. Don't worry about it. Just let it go. And I'm getting ready to go in, so I'm getting fixed up and everything. I go in, and she comes up to the arbor the next day, and she goes, that wasn't the wind. She goes, I stood out there and waited for the wind to blow. She said, nothing. The tree, the shade didn't brush up. That nothing hit the tent. Nothing slid down the tent. She goes, the wind didn't do that. And I said, man, it was it was that little guy. I said, he must have been playing around. I said, I was trying not to let you worry about it. And here my wife was 6 months pregnant, getting up, going around the shade in the tent, trying to chase it and see what it was. And I said, well, you should have just, I said, well, you're a big, brave woman anyways. I said, so I know you probably wasn't scared. Start laughing. But yeah, so I didn't have too many experiences with the little man. I've only seen him a couple times. And when we were younger and we would go to the camps, that little man used to play around with us, or my older cousins. And you know how they used to jump on the back of the cars when they would come, and powwow time, they'd jump on the back and ride them. I don't know if you experienced that, but we used to do that at the camps when the cars would drive by. Well, one time this car was driving and it got tired of the kids jumping on the back of it. Well, that little man went running and he was trying to play with those kids. And they said that that car stopped and that little man jumped up and just hit the end of that bumper and fell back down. And I guess shook his head around and jumped up, looked at everybody and took off running, took off back in the woods. But yeah, I haven't had too many experiences with them. I just have some pretty old stories that my uncle told me about them. But yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow, that's some that's some information right there. I hate to be so blunt, but does your does your people have a name for this Bigfoot? Little people?
Uh, my grandma said the name in Cheyenne, and I don't know. I wouldn't even have remembered it. Um, but there's an old story that we have that he's a part of the original group that was created. So there's a reason why we all have the same, visions, talking to animals, using cedar, using sage, prayers, these ceremonies that we have. They're all these things that are connected. And the reason why some tribes have a little bit and why other tribes have a whole lot and other tribes don't have none. So there's two floods that had happened on this earth. The first flood was here before, that happened before. The second flood that happened correlates with their Bible, where this big flood happened and we actually had to go and hide above mountains, hide where we could and stay. Well, when the Creator created us, he created, from the story I know, white man, red man, hairy man. He was created with the forked tongue, cunning like a wolf. He was built swift and agile, quick, red man. He was built stamina, endurance, strength. I mean, there's many things about it, but those are the main things that comes about it. And when we lived what they call the beautiful country, and I can only think of was before the split of the earth, because when they started to see the earth shake and the red of the sky change, that's when the earth split. And that's why they don't ever see white people on this side of the continent, because when it split, when they left and went north, it took it with them. And that's why they're on that side. Red red man and hairy man, some went north and some went south. Well, the story goes that the Creator, when he created us all together, all in the same place. Well, hairy man took off. They wanted to leave early. So they went south early. Well, they left before the Creator could give them their purpose in life, who they are, what they could do, their purpose. Because that's how we live. We have a purpose. We like to say we don't know what we're doing with our lives, but we have a purpose. And when he left, he was there for so many years. When Red Man got ready to leave, the Creator stopped us and told us to always stick together and never break up. Always stick together and never break up, he told us. Well, when that second flood happened, it was so much water we had to split up. Well, that's why there were so many medicine men that were in the beginning that you heard of how powerful they were. We all have powerful medicine men and women in our tribes that you would hear stories of, things of what they could do, things of how they did it. And they were taught by this original group. So when the flood receded, before we used to talk to animals and have all these different things, when that water receded, when we came back down, we communicated different after that. We was up there for so long that we weren't together anymore. And on this new land that's there now, we came in different areas. But because we still had people that were part of the original group that made these different tribes and these different things, we all have the same things. We all follow the same ways. We all know there's one Creator. It doesn't matter what fence you jump, there's one. So that's the story I know of him. And there's going to be things I'm not going to finish because there's things that need to be kept. And then, um, even with telling stories of lessons and experiences, there's things that we have to learn our own. That's for us because, my cousin one time he said, I'm gonna help you change your brakes. It's okay. Well, he changed them for me, and I'm like, started laughing. I said, I thought he was gonna help me. He said, well, I thought I'd just get them done for you. I said, well, I'll never learn. I said, you should show me and talk to me and show me how to change them so I'll know, so I can learn my mistakes of what I did wrong. And but he was always so helpful, so I wasn't like trying to be rude, and he was my older brother in a way because all of my cousins that I had were raised our brothers and sisters. So I had many brothers and sisters to teach me and show me and help see. And Bigfoot, yeah, my cousin Brian said that Grandpa said he was a bad man. And I said, what? I had many questions. I've always been a why person. I said, well, why? Well, I don't know. I said, well, how come? What made him, what did he do to make him, for us to see him bad? I needed to know because other than that, he came to me in a dream and warned me about a thing that was coming, and it happened, and I've seen it. Um, so the name is the only one I heard was the other tribe by dang, I can't think of his name, but he's the one who told me that what they called him, the other tribe.
Uh, one of the when we were chatting on the phone earlier a couple days ago, you told me a story that back in the day, the Cheyenne used to be in Colorado and the Navajo used to be in Colorado too. We used to coexist for sure. And you told me a story that we had some disagreements at one point in time where we used medicine on each other and we made peace afterwards. And I was just wondering if you can share that story here with us.
Well, there. So the story goes. I mean, basically, like what I told you was for you. It was one of those things that I'm afraid that it will give away too much of certain teachings that are in there.
Oh, okay.
So there's things that can be talked about, and there's things that I just can't. Uh,
Okay.
it, maybe if we're able to have one-on-one time, I can tell you the story, and that's for you to take care of and respect. But it's not for the millions and millions of people that right now can hear it. But yeah, so that's majority of the story was they had disagreements, and when came together, they had used medicine, and they kind of wanted to see who had stronger medicine. They wanted to understand, what the difference, and understand, how it all worked together with each other. And after these different things that happened, they decided to make peace. They didn't want to use medicine on each other anymore. I don't know what happened, or don't know what was done and what was said, and they made peace. And after that, as far as I know, peace was made. And there's certain things. If I go out west, there's certain things I got to take with me, certain things I got to have with me, that allows these other spirits that are there to know that I'm Cheyenne and not to bother me. And if I don't, they will bother me because they don't know that I'm Cheyenne.
Oh yeah, that's pretty awesome. Huh? You got another question before I fire another one off?
Oh no, man, it's all you right now. I'm just listening now.
On one of the when we had Big Indian that one episode, one of the videos I made where he told a story of one of his uncles doing bad medicine and he shapeshifted into an owl where he was
Mhm.
mocking his grandma. I was just wondering if
Yeah.
you can elaborate on that part as well.
Uh, when I was telling you about them being able to sing them songs,
Yeah.
so my grandma used to tell their her grandkids at the time, her older grandkids and her her kids not to go to the bluffs. So around Canton Lake, there are red bluffs that are on the other side. A lot of Indians would go and drink, and they would hang out the Indian side, in other words. And she would tell them, don't go over there. Don't go and drink over there. She said, them owls, they will remember your songs. And they didn't think nothing of it. They went over there. There was a 49 happening. Those men were singing their songs, and pretty soon they started hearing those songs up in the cedar trees. And it freaked them out that they could hear clear that they were singing like they were. And they loaded their stuff up and they left. And owls, the horn owls, this is something that I've never learned or truly understood the real meaning behind it. But they used to always say that these horn owls had battle with Cheyennes at one point in time, and to this day, we're still considered enemies to the horn owls. Anytime they would show up at the property, there would be things happening. I mean, my uncles and them would go out and they would blow them away with 12 gauge, and when they would go up to it to make sure that it was dead, them things used to turn their heads around once or twice and look at him, and it used to freak them out. And they would talk, they would say things. I mean, they would be up in the trees and would say fireworks to have like those M80s and would save them. So whenever they were in the trees, if our uncles weren't around, if we were outside playing out at night, because on this property, on the first, like I said, about 10, I would say 10, 15 acres that we actually played on, a lot of trees around. So it wasn't like we had street lights everywhere. And we weren't really scared. And I don't understand. I think it was because of my grandpa or my uncle, being the arrow keeper and having this medicine out there. It's, when a good man has it, it has a lot of power, a lot of medicine to it. And we would play kick the can, spotlight, hide and seek, all out there on this property. And we would hear mimics. We would hear hoot owls talk to us. We would hear, see black shadows. We would, see some weird things out there that just can't be explained. You would have something running around the house, hitting the house, like banging on the house, and it would be running too fast for a person to be running. You would see some weird things, like even clowns, like a clown face, So those hoot owls used to mimic these things. And one night, my sister comes in the house crying, and she's crying. And my Aunt Eva, she comes down and she checks on us. And my mom and dad went bingo. They went to Oklahoma City because that's the only place they had bingo. And this hoot owl told my sister, "Your mom and dad's gonna die in a car wreck on the way home." And my Auntie Eva, man, she's still brave today, but she grabbed a stick, and it was this big old. I mean, it's a big old tree, but it's mainly forest behind this area. My Auntie Eva just got her stick, started hitting that against that trailer, and walking around cussing. She went all the way back there in the back of the woods. I thought, oh crap. And we all stayed in the light. And she comes back around, and she told my sister and us, go back to sleep. Don't worry about what he said. Go on. So we went to the house and went to bed, and we didn't hear nothing else. Mom and dad made it home. And so them things, they do play with you. And if you allow it to, it will happen. It's like people, so Cheyennes, we don't burn sage. It is a big no-no for us. There's only one way we can burn it, but it's an old way, and I don't want to say it on here or give too much away. So, but yeah, so that's a no-no for us. And we burn cedar in the house, and there's certain things we use with this. We do with the cedar that completes everything for us. And those hoot owls and these different things that you hear, man, it is scary. Now that I thought about my home, and when we used to play, I mean, I was left in a cedar tree for 2 hours when we was playing Spotlight out in the middle of nowhere. As my cousin just said, hey, I'm going this way. Stay right here. Don't leave. I'm coming back for you. I'm coming back for you. Don't go nowhere. So, all I had to do was, I mean, you know, throw my jacket over my head and just lay there. And I'm sitting there thinking of a story about my aunt mom telling us about crying at night. You don't cry at night. You don't ever cry at night. You call bad spirits to you. You call bad spirits to your home when you cry. And they would tell us this story about this baby that was crying, and his mother kept telling him, "Be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Don't be crying. I'm gonna sit you on the porch. I'm gonna sit." And then pretty soon they set the baby on the porch, and she noticed the baby stops crying. Well, she goes out to look for her baby, and baby's not there no more. Well, she went and got the tribe to go look for her baby. Well, they found the baby, but it was up in a tree in the owl's nest. That owl was plucking out its feathers and plucking it into that baby. And the only reason they heard the baby, yeah, was because every time that owl stuck a feather in her, she would scream out. So that was the story of not crying at night. Looking out your windows at night, being before sundown. So we would that little mark underneath the thumb. They should tell us that's your marker. Whenever you put that against the horizon, that sun reaches that point, or if it's below, you get home. You don't bring your medicine out at night. You don't sit there and go about be a clown, because that's where all these bad spirits are. And people don't understand today on why things happen in their lives is because they're out playing at night. They're out going to different people's homes, shaking and hugging everybody. Because back in old days, Cheyennes, we carried sticks. When we wanted to see somebody, hug somebody, or say hello, we get those sticks and would click them together. So we didn't take anything that he had. He didn't give us none of his bad ways or his bad medicine, whatever it might have been, whatever a person might be afraid of, So those things I still carry today. A lot of those old teachings is what I teach my kids, and I do my best to, like I was speaking back with my Christian friend, I learned that way. I read the Bible. I went to churches. It's because one day my kids are going to make a choice, and that's what I'm raising them to do. They might decide to go Christian. Well, I need to study that way so I know how to teach them. I know which way they need to go. I know which way which person they need to talk to, because not all of them follow it the right way, just like anywhere else. So you have to talk to many people. You have to, I guess you could say, network. Network all these people and learn who is actually a good person and who is actually following the right way and who is doing the best. Because you'll hear a million people say, "I believe," but do they follow it the right way? No. There's only 144,000 that are going to go in the first trip. And it's like, so they don't understand what it means to be godly. It's because they're seeing everything else and they're not listening to what's in here. And I believe that's true, because I used to ask my buddy, questions, and he would say, "Well, this is the verse, or this is what this pastor told me." I said, "No, I want to hear what's in here." And he never could speak to me what he felt in here. I've learned Oto way, so in case my kids decide to learn this way, I try to grasp it and understand it. But because of how our people died and they took these old ways, there's not a whole lot that they can learn from. And I wasn't raised Oto, but my dad is Oto, and I have a lot of Oto family, and people would say, Kashui's Oto man. See, yeah, but I wasn't brought up that way, so I'm not gonna say that I'm Oto when I know nothing of the culture, nothing of the tradition, nothing of the people. I said I was raised Cheyenne. I said I was brought up this way. I said that's the reason I say I'm Cheyenne. That's just because I was brought up in it. And I mean, so seeing all those, because there used to be this black shadow, and it was about a 7 foot tall shadow. When we would play spotlight or hide and seek out there, we would see it. I would say anywhere from 10 to 20 yards away, we would always see it. It was always standing by a tree. It was always following us, and it never harmed us, never bothered us. But we always seen it everywhere we went, as long as we walked. And I remember looking back one time, and my cousin Stevie, he goes, "Keep walking, Jake, keep walking." And we're the last of the group, and the older cousin is in front, and there's probably about 4 or 5 of us in the middle of us young ones, and they're in the back, and we're just walking through the trees, just walking through the forest. And seeing something like that was pretty terrifying when I was little. But because of my belief, like not my religion, not my like traditional belief, but because I had belief in our ways, I wasn't terrified. I was like, Steve, you see that? And he goes, yeah, just keep walking, just keep walking. And later on, we found out that a man brought medicine out there to my grandpa who he could find no one to take care of it. And it wasn't our ways, but he brought it to my grandpa because my grandpa was a good man. And my grandpa ended up taking that medicine out in the back and burying it. And, it's been out there. So that's what they told us was that man was a tall, skinny man that brought that medicine out there. And that's what I've seen all my life throughout, when I went on that property was that tall shadow was always out there. When we would play kick the can spotlight, we would hear our cousins literally in a totally different place than they should have been. And they'd be like, come on, come find us. Come on, hurry up, hurry up. And we're like, hold on, we're going to take a break. And we go in the house and they're sitting in the house. And we're like, you guys, how'd you guys get here? And they're like, what do you mean? We decided to take a break. We couldn't get something to eat at grandma's house and we're going to get some pop and we was going to come and find you guys. I was like, shit, we're staying in now. So anytime we started to experience something that was, I would say too much, we would call it quits and we would, go on to someone's house or wherever it might be. And there was always a strip. So from my mom's trailer, there's a electrical lamp there to my uncle Luther's, and it's about 100 yards. It's 100 yards in between that is completely dark. There is no light in between. So when we used to go from our house to go play with everybody else on the other side, we would have to run. We would, running through that dark spot and, hearing Bigfoot, seeing Bigfoot, hearing stories. Man, we used to have this ghost train that would come by often and there would be no train track there. And we would still hear it, rolling through. But
Sonny, get in the car. Sorry. We have someone cruising up. We don't know who that is.
no worries.
But,
no worries.
No, all good, man. Well, I have a question. You said that you seen a clown, right? Or a clown face as well?
So one day my uncle Edward comes home from the ceremonies and there's things that he has in a shed outside his house. And this was in town of Watonga. So it wasn't like he was out in the country. It was in town, and he has this big tree sitting outside his house by this shed. And he goes out to go and get these things he needs out of that shed. And he gets halfway to that shed, and it pokes his head around that tree.
Ooh.
And he said, I just stopped. And he said, I was staring at it. And he said, I stared at it until it put his head back around that tree. He said, so after he put his head back, he said, I backed up, went in the house. I went to my medicine box. He said, and I told Brenda, come on, you can walk with me. And he said, because Jay, I may know things, but there's always still something scary out there that you're not sure of. He said, and I don't know why I seen it. He said, he said, that's not nothing of ours. He said, nothing that we, I said, I don't know why I seen it. He said, but I seen it and I took care of it. And I started laughing because that's the way he was. If there was things happening, he would go to his box, come back out, don't worry about it. And we would go play or we would take off. And it was always that way, it was, hold on. He'd go take care of it, come back, go play. I'm like, all right. So, that fear of being like going back out that people have today is like, we didn't have that because that's how it was said to us. It's taken care of going just like that. So there's a lot of stuff that I didn't think was scary until I got older and had got kids of my own. Now I'm like, man, you don't realize how scary that stuff is. The hoot owls, the mimics, the tall figures, Bigfoot, seeing shadows, seeing hairy man, or even a wolf man type thing that I never knew today when it got into my auntie Zola's house. So my cousin Riggy was probably about 7 or 8. They hear someone knocking, and she goes to open the door. She goes, I'm gonna go open it. So her mom lets her take off to the front door, and pretty soon she gets to the door. She says she looks out, and she just starts trying to close the door, and she starts screaming for her mom. And her mom comes running down the hallway. She said, what is it? What is it? She said, it's not Uncle Wesley. It's not Uncle Wesley. It's not Uncle Wesley. So her mom took off, slammed that door, locked it. 'Cause I'm gonna go open it. So her mom took off, slammed that door, locked it. 'Cause I'm gonna go open it. So her mom took off, slammed that door, locked it. 'Cause I'm gonna go open it. So her mom took off, slammed that door, locked it. 'Cause I'm gonna go open it. So her mom took off, slammed that door, locked it. my cousin and them get their bow. We get that medicine, and we burn some, get some coals and some ashes going, and they come out. So where the road's at, it's probably about 10 yards from my aunt's house to the road, and it's nothing but dark. There's one light pole that is literally on the other side of the trees. So all you got is the part of the driveway that you're able to see, and then everything's kind of dark, moonlit. And then there's a fire line, probably 50 yards. Once you come to the road, you're looking, I would say, west. West, let's see. Yeah, west. You're looking west, and there's nothing but a fire line and this sign and trees. Now, this cutout spot of that firewall that we would actually sneak into to walk down the road or walk to the lake was like pretty high. And I never really thought about it in town now on how high it was. But it was like a cutout, or like somebody broke the branches so they wouldn't be hitting them every time they came through. But they go out there and they see what looks like, I guess, a dog man or a wolf like thing. It's standing in the middle of that little cutout spot where that fire line's at. And they start talking to it, and it backs into the fire line, and they never saw it again. And there were some scary stories that I heard that happened with my aunt and them that I just, it's hard to believe. And I don't know if anybody else saw it. I mean, seen it. So I'm gonna tell the story. So there's a road by Hinton that has these. It's like a little short, long bridge. It has these little rails on it that look like a golden brick, or like a I don't know, man. There's these little hills that are just like metal beams, and they go across it. And Auntie Zola, Auntie Eva, driving in the car. It's a truck. They got a camper on it. Benji, Stevie's in the back, and sitting inside the camper. As they pass it, they see something standing there, black, but it's facing away from them. As soon as they pass it, it must have jumped on the car. But they didn't feel it until they got close to close to getting home. That it started to try to, I guess, move the truck. So they weren't sliding all over the road, but the truck was moving, and they didn't know what it was. And as they're coming across Canton Bridge, they're sitting there thinking, well, what's that? Well, them little boys poked their heads out of that little window, and they looked up. And what they described was a green face man that looked like it was slobbery, like it was all slobbered, like what do you call that? Snot all over its face. It was like running. He had no eyes. He had purple lips. And I don't remember if it had a nose, but it had a long coat on. His hair looked like it was just wet, like a curly, like a what they call them, jerry curls. Like it looked wet like that, and it was long, wet hair, and it had a cap on, like Jeepers Creepers. But that's what they saw. Okay, well, as soon as they get to the house, it's still on top of the house, the camper. Them boys crawled through both windows to get into the front end. Well, my aunts and them said, well, let's go back to Junior's because that medicine's back there. Well, that thing jumped off in the woods. So there's probably about 200 yards or 150 yards of just nothing but bushes in between the front of the property and my uncle's house. And whatever it was stayed back there or stayed in that little tree area, because my grandma would tell me, Jay, when I'd go over to my grandma's house and my uncle was staying there at the time watching over her, she would say, if you ever hear that door jiggle or any knocking on the back door, don't open it. Don't open it. I said, all right, Grandma. All right. And every now and then you would hear that door jiggle, something like try to get in. And I always thought it was that thing, whatever it was, because my uncles end up getting into it with the spirit like that. And it jumped on them. Like they could see it to where one was trying to get it off my other uncle. And I can't explain it. I don't know how to explain it really. but it was like a spirit. Like it was like, but it was in like you could see it, but it was apparitional, and it looked like that thing that was on back of the truck, and it was making them throw up. And what it was doing was jumping on their back and holding on to them, and they would be just throwing up, throwing up, throwing up. And man, so that was always pretty scary to me because I never got to confirm what it was, what it might be. And my sister created a Ouija board out of cardboard,
Oh,
and that thing they burned it the first time. It came back,
what?
and they actually had to go get my grandpa. My grandpa had to come over there, and he grabbed that thing, and he went and did what he was supposed to do, and never saw it again. He told us, go on back to playing. Don't worry about it. So didn't worry about it. Never heard of it. But yeah, my sisters and them, they were like, I didn't think it was gonna work. It's cardboard, it's marker, it's not a real thing. And it's like you're creating it. So, these different things that happen out there, it's pretty scary. I'm thankful that I didn't have to experience a whole lot of it because I always felt like I had a lot of belief. It protected me. My cousin Rob stayed in the old trailer with my grandpa Bill, and they end up, when you reach to record the top 100 and top 20, well, he threw his stereo on, put his cassette in there, push record, and then I can't, my cousin Stevie went stay the night with him. Whatever it was trying to drag Stevie off the bed. Well, it got him off the bed. My cousin Rob jumped on my cousin Stevie, was keeping him from going underneath the bed, screaming for my grandpa. When my grandpa got in there, that thing disappeared. Well, they got up, they went to my grandpa's room. They forgot about that CD playing or that cassette being recording. Well, whatever it was recorded on that cassette. Now I've never got to hear it. I've always heard it's like what they call them, an urban story. But yeah, I've never got to hear the CD. I've asked my Auntie Eva many times, and she's just said, "Tell me, you don't ever want to hear it." She would say, "There's something you don't ever want to listen to." She said they recorded the whole thing. She said that CD, that cassette was one of those big cassettes that was supposed to be able to record 100 songs. He said it stayed in that room. And I said, no. And she goes, yep. She goes, so your grandpa took care of it. She said, and that's all we know of it. She said, there's not a whole lot that he didn't tell us what happened. She goes, he's never been that way. Those old medicine men are like that. They don't come back and tell you, this is what I did and this that happened. This, yay, they took care of it. That's all you need to worry about. It's good. So the scary stuff, like I said, it didn't seem scary until I got older, how scary it was.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of add to that, there's a lot of things that I've experienced that I don't want my kids experiencing, especially that Ouija board experience. I'll throw myself out there, say don't do it, you're gonna end up weird like your dad here, and don't whistle at night. Don't whistle at night because things will come and attach itself to you. And that's very real. I have a death whistle, and every time I use it, something happens to somebody for sure. That something tries to hijack their body. It just goes on. There's things out there that we need to be aware of. And I had a question for you that I kind of forgot, but I remember now is I know like the Navajos, we have a lot of elemental spirits, like the herbal, the plant spirits, and then the star people, the star spirits. Yep. We would ask them, which way is the skinwalker? Where's that witch? That Yena Adloshi, the skinwalker. And then we would ask the star people, and the star people would send a shooting star, point what direction they're at, and we would know where they're at. So I was wondering if you guys have the same. I'm pretty sure you guys have the same elemental beings.
So Cheyennes, I don't know about any other tribe, so I'll say it like this: we have one of the, I would say, most complex belief that there's more spirits than people believe or lead on. So there's 7 stages to the atmosphere and to Earth. So we believe there's a spirit for every one. And there's a reason why we go to a mountain to seek visions. That's because that's when that vortex comes to. That's where it meets. That's why you try to be at the highest point, is because that's when you're going to be at the closest to the creator to connect. And when you're not, I mean, you see it all the time with mountains and UFOs or whatever it might be that they're experiencing. They experience different stuff. Uh, but as Native people, we would go and do that for the creator. And I mean, we believe that there's a lot of spirits and a lot of elements for different things, like the cedar. Okay, there was we have a story of a Cheyenne man that loved his people so much that he wanted to take care of all people, and he asked the creator to give him life, and he was dying, and the creator said, I can't help you live forever, but I have something for you. And he made him into a cedar tree that could not die. It lives all year round. It is the one tree on earth that lives completely, ageless. In other words, and every one of us use it. Every one of us Native Americans use it. There's not one that don't have it for something. So they have stories about the red dirt. Why tornadoes don't hit Indians is because of the pacts they made back then, those elements that got into it. They were having a meeting in a teepee, and when they came in, they didn't invite rain, the story goes. And the reason why is because when rain comes, it brings sickness. Well, when that rain element came down to that meeting, he turned into an ugly faced man because that's what it brings. Well, he stood by the door. When the meeting was done, after all the elements that we have that are within the seasons, he touched every one of them that passed him. He said, because you didn't invite me to this meeting, now I'm with all of you. And in all the seasons, it can rain. All the seasons have water. So there was that little story on why there's rain, that why the rain is with every season, why it can rain in any season. And with the tornado that I've seen, I've seen my grandpa turn a tornado away like I can't believe. Yeah, some of it is unbelievable, and some of it's like, how did that happen? There's no way. I've seen my dad split a tornado in half, and it's on the news. I mean, you probably be able to still find it in records. Um, Over there in Oklahoma City, probably in, I would say, anywhere from 2000 and 2005, that hit Wiley Post Airport. My mom, she said, she got scared and she said, Jerome, there's a tornado going to come this way. They're saying a tornado's coming. Go out there and pray. And that's, my dad was raised, he's Oto, but he learned Cheyenne and he took Cheyenne way. And he was never like that. And so I'm sitting on the couch watching cartoons, and she said, get up, go with him, go learn. So I get up, turn off my TV, and I go outside my dad, and he has his shell. I think there's a word for them that they call it Abyssinian or something, shell, but it's a big old shell, and he has a cedar in it, and he's sitting there, and it's blowing, it's windy. He starts praying, and as soon as that wind, like, it stops, man, he gets his stuff together, he starts preparing it, lights it up, the wind starts back up after he's finished getting his cedar started. Gets his feather, he makes this motion right down the middle, that way, that way. Pretty soon we go back into the house and we hear the newsman screaming, I can't believe it. The tornado split in half. The tornado split in half. Tornado split in half. It's going down Wiley Post. It's going down this way. So we have a lot of old elements and stories that were taught there on why we use certain things and why certain things can't be done, or why certain things can be done. And those elements, they play a huge part in it. People, a lot of people just think it's just the weather. It's just the weather. I've heard so many people say Oklahoma the weather changes like that. In Oklahoma, the weather changes like that. Drop of a dime. Well, people don't realize there's 38 federally recognized tribes in Oklahoma. You still have old medicine within those groups. Some of them still have it. One man might be praying for rain. One man might be praying to go away. Well, what happens when two forces mix? When you pray for rain, they tell you don't ask for something if you don't understand it, because you can ask for the rain, but tornadoes come with it. So it's I'm very, very, I believe I'm very blessed to have got the teachings that I have and the knowledge that I have, to be able to have this, because I can't tell every story. I can't tell all the stories, or some of these things can't be taught, um, unless a Cheyenne man comes, a Cheyenne man or Cheyenne woman comes to me and asks me, "Hey, can you share me this story?" Or, "Hey, can you tell me this thing?" Then I can give it to them. Because back then, the old ways, the way you got your information, you took a gift for what you thought your question was worth. Like when people come and help you, you give what you think it's worth, not what someone will pay for. Because I've heard that business. I went out to Mississippi to go help somebody, and um, I explained to the family. You ask me at literally when it's too late. She's literally on hospice, and I explained I can't get up and fly around the world. I don't walk on water. I can't run through this brick wall. I said all I can do is comfort her for right now. And the person asked me how much you charge, and I'm like, what? This person charged 500. This person charged 1,000. I said, listen, I done explained it to you. The way we're taught is whatever you have that's coming from here. When it comes from here, it doesn't matter whether it's a cigarette, whether it's a penny. I'm gonna treat it the same. I'm gonna treat it the same as $1 billion. I'm gonna treat it the same as 100 horses. And we lose that teaching right there. Being able to do that, we don't have that no more. Those are part of everyone's being able to give something that comes from the heart. We expect it. We got our hand out, or we want it because you gave me that $20 last time, and I want it back. And it's like people don't realize that these blessings come. When you have a lot, people are going to be needing it. I've seen that. When you accumulate a lot and you try to save up, people will be in need. And it literally is up to you to help them or not. But, it's tough. It's tough for people that don't have those teachings, maybe. Because I grew up, different. And I'm not, wasn't raised the greatest, but what I seen and how I was raised is the greatest. My dad, like I said, drank all my life, but when he was sober, he taught me many things. He taught me how to be self-sufficient, is one of the key things I always contribute to him. Anything that I've learned in life, I will always contribute to my aunt, my uncle, my grandma, my mom and dad, because everything that they taught me is the basic foundation of everything that I've learned today at 37. So it's weird, but when people ask me, where'd you learn this? And I probably learned it yesterday. I'm like, well, my uncle Edward taught me this, and this is where it comes from. It's the foundation of what I have. People jump the fence too many times, and it comes across. So when you jump the fence, what I mean by this is you believe this way, you believe that way. You might be traditional, but then you go to church, or you might live this way, but you go out on weekends. They, and my dad used to always say, you stay on one side of the fence and you do your best. He said, Jay, a man that makes 1,000 potatoes for 1,000 years is always going to be good. A man that makes corn for 1,000 years, he said, and this fence splits them in line. He said, all right. I said, yeah. He said, if that man gets that potato and tries to make it, he's going to make it bigger, stronger, faster, better. Always. But that man's been making it the same way for 1,000 years. Why is he trying to make it better? What's the reason? What's the story behind it? I said, I don't know. He would say, well, can I give that man some corn to get potatoes? I said, yeah. He said, you won't ever go starving if you do that, right? I said, right. He said, because if you do take that potato, now you're growing two crops. Now you got more than you can handle. And I'm like sitting there trying to understand him. And today I understand it. I can give the information out to everybody, and whether it comes back in any way is okay. Because I always say, as long as you take care of it, respect it, I'm okay. But yeah, that's the biggest key is these elements. I think that they get forgotten. Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's trying to describe this lifestyle, that this way of life. It's it's not easy. I tell you the truth. You talk about ceremonies. I can explain it down to the root, but some people they did their minds can't wrap around it, and it's difficult. And I choose my words. I do my best to choose my words wisely. To
Mhm.
better explain this. This lifestyle. You can go. They would call it, pagans and stuff like that since the beginning, ever since the people came here, but they've been living like this. We've been living this life, and we've been here for thousands of years. And the sad part about it is, like you were saying, fold, they tried folding and bending, to the point where we have to uh, live with. They want us not to live without them, like they need
Mhm.
our money and stuff like that. So we become uh, molded, I guess, pressed, cookie cutter
Mhm.
uh, Americans, let alone native.
Yep.
So it's you do need a free mind. I think people should have a free mind to to think about this, what we're here for, what we're doing, and uh, it's I can always lead down to it's better to learn and love, appreciate other people around you, even though their lifestyle may be a bit different.
Mhm. Yep.
That doesn't mean it's wrong. I, I keep I have a little girl at the house, and I hold up my little dog, and she was looking at it like, what is this? It's the ears. It's ears just like you have. It's just different. That doesn't mean it's bad.
Yep.
And she's like, oh, what is this? Like, oh, those are his teeth. He uses to eat, and he talk with you just like you, just like they. That doesn't mean it doesn't mean it's bad.
Mhm.
So, it's good to get the youth at an early age, and to let them experience this life. Um, and this is one of the miracles. As you get older, you start noticing the youth. You were there. I was there. I know how it feels. Um, and and then that's where I noticed I got older. And like I can tell them, don't do it like that. Do it like this, or go over here. Is better over there. And
Mhm.
it's a unique life experience getting older. And I tell my parents, my parents used to still tell me, like I seen you grow up, and you grew up to be a man. And it's the same way for me. Like I watch.
Uh-oh, you froze. Well, I don't know if anybody can still hear me. Uh, but our host froze. Oh man, something happened. But yeah, so like he's saying about how people live different roads, and don't treat them anyway. I always say we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Uh, so what happened when I've worked with somebody that I have heard no good stories about. Not one good story have I heard about this man, and I treated him with respect. I talked to him good. I would tell him stories. He never had to get off the truck and work. I always made sure that I got off the truck. I did everything, so he didn't have to do anything. I don't know if y'all can hear me, but I'm gonna keep talking. Uh, so I've heard people say, "Oh, you work with that man." I'm like, "Yeah." Oh, well, he's this. There's this. And I'm like, "All right, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." I said, "If it's something that can't be fixed, then we'll part ways. But if we're able to get through it, then we're gonna get through it." I said, but he's always treated me with kindness and respect, so I'm gonna give that back to that man because that's the way my grandpa was. There was people that would come out to our property and try to get money off him and free things off him, and they would tell him, "Why do you do that for him? Why do you do that for him? Why do you?" He said, "Well, if he treats me bad, then we'll cross that bridge. Tell them, leave him be." And I believe that. They always treat everybody good, no matter who it is. It doesn't. I've done my best to live a good life. Like I've said before, there's a poem called "If" by I think it's called Rudy Kepler. I got that when I was in seventh grade by a teacher named Mr. Melton. He would have these 7 poems that you'd hang up on his wall. And at the end of the year, he'd give these poems to these kids that lived up to these poems. And oh, you back. I was
sorry
talking.
about
I didn't
that.
know
The
if everybody could
Starlink.
hear me.
Oh man, thank you for keeping everyone company.
Yeah.
It's a little test. You are radio material for sure, Monkey.
Yeah.
But sorry about that, man. Sorry you had to carry the weight on. But right here's Darren. He didn't finish his thought, but hang on, right here.
Oh yeah, I was saying, just because it's different doesn't mean it's bad. Then that's something you can, you could teach to a younger girl like the one I was talking to earlier. And she's she's understanding where she stands in this world. The best thing to do is to, be a parent, be an adult about certain subjects, and do your best to understand that, like you were saying earlier, that he's only 4 years into this world, and you have 30 something years. So, this proper teaching, proper learning for the youth. Stuff like the conversation you had. That's good. That is really good teaching, and this is it makes me happy to have it recorded, and it's something that people will listen to all around the world right now on this planet that we're on. And it's about time for you, to speak. You have a unique voice and a very unique understanding of this world that people tend not to not understand. So thank you.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. Welcome to the family, brother. Thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom and going into uncle mode for us and giving us talking to us things of what we need to hear and reminding everyone that we have an elder in the building and just just give your ears and listen up. I think that's one of the important things that we got to do in this life. And it'll be less about us and more about the people, more about the kids, more about the community, and just being available for everyone. But yeah, thank you again for coming on. And is there any final shout outs and final thoughts you want to say. I think your family was on here. They said, "Dad, we're watching you right now." So if you want to give the wife and kids a shout out, go for it, brother.
I would say this, when I was 13, no, when I was 9, my mother got breast cancer. And when she got it, at the time that I didn't know enough of it, I thought she was going to die. So I used to take a backpack full of crackers, potted meat, Viennas, and a gallon of 2-liter tea. I had my brother make my tea, and I would take off into the woods, man. And my mom said, "Come back before sundown." That's all she used to say to me. But when she got breast cancer, I thought she was gone. So I took off. I was there all night. Finally came back and come lay down. She would say, "Come lay down with me in my little box heater," because I always lay with my mama, and I was always warm, high metabolism. She's come here, little box heater. And she said, "Above all that you learn, above all that anybody teaches you," she said, "be a good person." And I said, "Mom, what does that mean?" She said, "You will know. Your heart will always tell you what is right and what is wrong." She said, "Once you get your mind and your heart to line up and listen to each other, you're going to be able to do anything that you want. But when they're fighting," she'd say, "you're always going to mess up. You're always going to choose the wrong, doubt yourself." She said, "But just be a good person above all. Be a good person." And today, I didn't know what that meant when I was growing up. But I knew what good was. I knew what my heart was saying when people made bad decisions. I understood it was bad. Your heart always tells you what is good and what is bad. And people will say, "Well, don't listen to your heart about this or that." That's the point of me saying you have to get your head and your heart aligned to be able to make the right choices, to understand the right choice. But a lot of the times your instincts, your heart's always going to tell you what is right, what is good. And a lot of the times you have to get them lined up to be able to do the right thing. Because if not, it's the what if, what might, what could be. And it's always going to be that way. So I would say that, above all, do your best to live a good life. Everybody's always going to find something to say. Just keep being a good person. There's always something that somebody's going to find about being a good person. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Very well, very very well spoken, man. Truly, have respect to you for coming on and dropping this knowledge bomb on the world. And people do need to hear this. And for the non-natives to it, if they want to understand our mindset, the mindset of the people, I would suggest listening to this episode, and just the communication between us. I know we have a lot of stuff going on our side, so
Mhm.
thank you again for holding up the radio station when we had some damages going on right now. So
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if anybody can hear me or see me, but I'm gonna go ahead and finish because you were telling the story about how treating people good, even though that you live a different lifestyle. And I agree 100% because I was explaining that I work with this person that I had heard not one good story about this man, but they put me with him. And they would say, "How can you work with him?" And I said, "Well, he hasn't done me wrong. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," and tell them I'm gonna keep treating them good because that's what I was taught. Treat everybody the same. Well, when that happens, we'll cross that bridge. If we can repair it, we will. If we can't, then yeah, we'll split ways. But there's no reason to be hateful or mean, So
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely. Thank you again, Mahokini. I think I said it wrong. Mahoki. Wait. Oh, geez. I had it. Wait. One more time. Mahoki. Did I say it right? I think I said it wrong.
Makia,
Makia. Okay. Makia.
I was letting you go. At
Makia.
least you
Thank
was
you,
doing was
brother.
trying. That's all I could ask for. You was trying.
Hey, we appreciate that, and thank you for coming on and being a brother to us and being a more than a stranger to us and just being a family. And then everyone out here listening to the radio and to the podcast, I hope you guys really got something out of this because Darren and I definitely do. every episode we get something new out of it, and it's been amazing. And I'm thankful for you existing and being here with us, and thank you so much for all the knowledge you gave us and everyone here. And welcome to the family again. And any more last shout outs before we close out the show, brother?
No, because I mean, I could literally go on for another couple hours. Like I said, I've sat with old men that talked all night, and there's more to this than people think. What I was able to explain, or way I was able to get out, is just literally a fraction of what could be talked about and what could be explained, and to be able to express in a deeper thread. Would be, I could go on for days. My wife would tell me I talk like an old man, and my son would tell me that we go into academy. Dad, can we hurry up and leave? I'm like, hold on, 5 more minutes. We was here for 30 minutes. Oh, okay, let's go. Then so so I could talk all day, but I do appreciate it. I thank you guys, and I hope that my scary stories were good enough. I'm sorry if I didn't have the fear. It was just so normal to me that it's like second nature telling it, but I do appreciate it. Thank you. And I hope there was people that was able to listen and understand what I was saying. And there's some that probably do. So if I was able to help, what I was asked to do. And I would say, if you ever wanted to have this conversation again, maybe just let the people know so they're not overwhelming you with Bigfoot. Hey.
Yeah. We'll definitely put that in the description. Say, hey, this is a grown folks talk, something like that. Or we'll figure it out. But everyone in the chat is asking you to come back again. So right here, part 2. Then we got Jay Rose says bring him back soon. So I'll definitely, when I get home, I'll look at the calendar. I know I'm like in December right now, but people cancel. It's people have a life, and that's totally fine. And we're here every week, and we're gonna stay the same. But
yes, sir.
What won't stay the same is the episodes. Like yourself, you brought another element to us, and thank you so much again. Yes, and we're gonna close out the show, brother. You want to say laters one more time for the listeners out there?
I appreciate it, and I was hoping that I was able to help in any kind of way, and with anybody that's listening, everybody, because I'm not trying to explain strictly to Native Americans, because what I got to say can go across the entire creation board, and that's the point. The point of this earth is learning how to coexist with one another, and we have a hard time because no one looks at creation the same way. Mm-hmm. When you learn the architect, you kind of go, I see how it's done. I see how it's built. Just like you would see a house built. So, I appreciate it, and hopefully I will be able to come back, so I do thank you guys, and I had a good time.
Oh, hey, likewise, brother. We got I think one of your kids right here, Koshawe, says, hi, Dad.
Yeah.
And they're saying,
hey,
Dad,
son.
I see you on TV.
Love you, buddies.
Oh yeah, heck yeah, man. Hey, thank you guys for having an awesome dad and allowing him to come on the radio with us and on the TV, Roku TV, the radio stations and everywhere. Thank you, kids, and thank you to everyone out there that's behind you and supporting you. And from Darren and I, we like to say thank you and welcome to the family again. You want to see you later, Darren?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Another great episode. Might not have been spooky, but that's a lot of knowledge that came with it, and that's always a plus on this side. So thank you again. This is another great episode we had. Welcome in. Learned a lot. Learned a lot.
All right, my brother. We're gonna close out the show here. Thank you for everyone for tuning in to Don't Whistle at Night. We have been broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Thank you, Moke. Did I say it right?
Yep.
Thank you, brother. Red Feather. I'll just say Red Feather. I'm gonna keep
Yeah, there you
forgetting.
go.
I'm gonna
There
keep
you
trying.
go.
Though. I'm not gonna give up. Thank you, Red Feather, for coming on and blessing
Yes,
us with
sir.
your presence and your
Thank you.
voice. And from us, Darren and I, and Red Feather here from the Cheyenne Nation, we like to say thank you all for joining us. And remember, guys, don't whistle at night. Stay safe out there. Blessings to everyone. Take it easy. Stay strange and beautiful. See you guys. Hey,
Yeah.
see you, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay. We'll see you guys later. Oh, gotta get the intro.
Another episode
the
now.
outro.
We're back. Hey.
All right.
Part two's
all right,
up.
man.
No.
All right, man. Here goes the
All right.
outro.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it, man. Thank you. Oh.
Welcome to Don't Whistle at Night podcast, where Navajo legends echo in the shadows. Darren and Dawn will guide you through the sacred fire of native storytelling, where the old stories breathe, the unknown walks among us, and voices, long hidden, rise to be heard. And remember, don't whistle at night.